Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Team Redline have shown us their winning ways, but as we turn our attention from road courses to speedways, we'll learn now who will rise to the top as we kick things off for the first of 5 ovals here at the Iowa Speedway. Welcome along to round 3 in the INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series. So glad to have your company here on INDYCAR's YouTube channel on the iRacing Esports Network. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined once again by the ever-wonderful Kenneth Bueno. And Kenneth, we've had some fun, first at the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but last week on the streets of Long Beach. Now at the Iowa Speedway, a very different sort of a challenge. Can't wait for what we've got in store here tonight.
It just feels like, Arjuna, the difficulty level is turning up notch by notch. Indy gave us the starter. Long Beach was very tough for many on that very challenging road course, but Iowa in its own nature, the first oval race of the season, not only could pose a pivotal change for the drivers getting their setups together, Arjuna, but getting this championship underway. The first oval race of the season probably will give us an idea of who will shine at these types of venues and who could make that mark in the championship once we get later in the season.
5 road courses / street circuits and 5 ovals. It's great to have that mix, but if you missed what we saw last week from the streets of the international city, oh boy, we saw plenty of action. Down to turn 1, it all started with Florian Lebigro, who started in second, slightly misjudging his braking zone, going straight and dropping to the very back. Once we got to the fountain, though, the expected chaos ensued. You saw a couple of cars barreling through the grass, including Jose Suri in the Drago Racing entry, and then plenty of other cars getting tangled up with damage, seeing them have to go slightly different on the strategy, Kenneth, and that was the talking point of the race. How did he use the 2 compounds of strategies as he survived over the bumps of Long Beach?
And you had to use that new Waiuli tire, and a lot of it, though, came down to mistakes, a determining factor in this race. Many heavy hitters, Arjuna, with a bit of wing damage, and different points in the race where things got chaotic, whether it was contact or just nose-to-nose racing. It was all over the place, but one thing was for certain, Florian Lebigro made that comeback for Team Redline. Everyone tried to sort themselves out, but it was all Cooper Webster up the front.
And what a dominant drive from Cooper as well. We put it on pole, didn't see him much through the course of the race just because he kept it out of trouble. Didn't lead every lap, no, that was just by virtue of the strategy, but made sure that we weren't keeping an eye on him until the very end. His teammate Florian Lebigra, though, that fight back was something to behold. And to the closing stages, though, Gustavo Ariel, Michele Costantini, some drama between the two of them. Sotomuto was then going to try and take advantage to try and pass Gustavo Ariel. And the Brazilian Stern in his defense unable to make the move happen, all as Cooper Webster up front celebrated victory. If you're just joining us, though, for the very first time this season, don't forget that you, the fans, have already had your say. The penultimate round of the season, we had a fan vote. You chose for us to go to the Milwaukee Mile. And so 2 ovals to round off the season, Kenneth. Today's race sees us build up the form book on the ovals as we build this championship equation.
And one common thread between all the ovals you'll find on this 2024 schedule is that a lot of them have very, very abrasive surfaces. So you may have to get step 1 underway tonight at Iowa. It could change differently as we move into the season, but if you can handle a rough racetrack that beats up the rubber, then you could probably have that advantage going into, let's say, a Worldwide Technology Raceway or the Milwaukee Mile, and then that finale at Nashville Super Speedway. So this will be the first proper challenge for those that are fighting for that championship, and with 2 different winners and 2 very different races over the season, Arjuna, it means that the tertiary might just be all over the place.
And the points themselves really starting to look quite interesting. Only 2 drivers have finished inside of the top 5 in both of the races so far. Diogo Pinto, Gustavo Ariel find themselves nestled up there inside of the points lead battle, but Cooper Webster sits on top. Plenty of the red line drivers in contention. Watch out, though, for Phil Kraus Costantini just on the edge of the top 20, looking to try and make their mark. But Kenneth, shortest track of the season, talk us through what we've got in store tonight.
And it is the first oval located in Newton, Iowa, designed by NASCAR driver Rusty Wallace. It is a beautiful 0.875 mile, 1.4 kilometer oval. It was opened back in 2006, but this track shows its age. A ton of nasty bumps. One thing, though, that we'll watch over the course of the race is that this track is designed for multi-groove racing. 12 to 14 degrees of bankings in the turns 1 through 4. That'll allow for drivers to make speed on the bottom, the middle, and that very outside lane tucked up against that outside safer barrier. So this track will be really fun, and it'll also be interesting in the fact that the qualifying series did not see this venue on the schedule. So for most of this field, the first proper glance at what Iowa Speedway is all about.
And qualifying already in the books. Let's head down trackside, take a look at the starting grid, because, well, the king of the bricks, at least in 2024, double iRacing Indy 500 champion Rob Malechka lines up on pole. The challenge comes from Diogo Pinto, though, on the outside of the front row. What can he do with his Team Redline teammate Gustavo Ariel also flying in qualifying? Redline have found some speed. Luke McEwen is alongside on the outside of row 2, with Dan Amor very quick alongside Sam Coiter to round out the front 6 starting spots. Eduardo Leo trying to put the disappointment from Long Beach behind him. He's alongside Jason Brophy. Watch out for some strategy calls in that private label team hype number 88, with Michele Costantini and Michael Gianni edge of the top 10. Peter Berryman's inside of Florian Lebigra. He finished on the podium last time. He's got some work to do to try and find his way forward as the number 50 Apex Racing Team machine. And as you work your way down through the rest of the grid to row number 7, you find Cooper Webster, last week's race winner. Not that much experience for him on the ovals. He'll battle alongside Michael Romanidis trying to fight his way forward. The first of the Drago Racing drivers, Ricardo Rico, sees Brandon Treno, the only multi-time winner of the iRacing Indy 500, buried back in the field, qualifying a bit of challenge for him, as well as Phil Kraus and Jacob Oster in another one of the private label Team Hype and Team i5G entries. Tamas Shimon, David Toth, pair of Hungarian drivers on the edge of the top 20, with Jordan Caruso and Brendan Lichtenberg sharing row 11. There's only about 1/10 of a second or so through these drivers as you find Jaden Munoz and Jeff Drake alongside one another. Javi Ross and Jose Soria line up alongside one another on row number 13, with 27th seeing Elliot Veyron. Sotomuto trying to fly his way forward for a second time this season, this time from 28. Adam Crane, Kevin Burrell, they'll be a little disappointed to be all the way back there in the field. What will they do on strategy? Yusi Katia, the final driver with a time on the board, and Josh Chin, who's got it all to do after failing to set a lap time. No Luis Nunes today after some incidents at the last round of the championship. But that was one thing that you and I were touching on just before we went live, Kenneth. The margin through the field in qualifying, you have one slight slip up, you're several positions down as we take a look at the Buttkicker race analysis.
And that will mean a lot over this 147-lap race. It can be very difficult to pass at this Iowa Speedway, so if you get a good lap in qualifying, you could be in a good spot for the rest of this outing. We go a little under 125 miles from Newton, Iowa. We do have cautions, though, for the first time this season. That will play a role if drivers find themselves in trouble, and it could take out some of our heavy-hitting drivers. We know that we'll go single file on the restart, so the leader will control that as soon as that pace car makes that left to the entry of pit road. One thing as well, we have no tire compounds on oval racing and no tire set limits either, so you can get unlimited rubber down pit road as much as you need it over the course of this race. But one thing we may see, Arjuna, pit road speed limit going into effect if we get green flag stops. That 40 miles an hour pit road speed limit is very slow in comparison to what we'll see with these IR18s here at this Speedway.
And we get an additional lap behind the pace car because we're at a short oval. One more thing to keep in mind is if we get green flag pit stops, Kenneth, when you pit here, you go laps down. So picking when to pit, knowing when your tires have fallen off the cliff, very important that you're on top of strategy, knowing we've got relatively cool conditions on track here today.
I wouldn't say it's cool. 106 degrees is pretty hot here at Iowa Speedway. It will be cooking, and one thing that will be different from the last two races we've had is that you're going to watch a lot of your right front tire here at this track because these cars take such a G-force going through the corners. You may wear out that right front a little more than anticipated, depending on how you save your stuff over the course of the race. The wind speed too, you touched on it, Arjuna, how it changed from practice to qualifying. A healthy 11 miles an hour in race trim, so it'll be fun to see how the wind alternates how fast these cars go and how the setups will be altered as well.
Well, just shy of 125 miles, 3 different pole sitters to kick off the season. Will we see a third different winner? We're ready to go in this INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series pace car off and away. Fielding control of Rob Milechka. Let's bring the thunder from Iowa. They're trying to slot into line behind, but look, McEwen rips the high line and challenges Gustavo Ariel on the run to turn 3. Your race leaders breaking clear of the field, though, as they battle behind back to the line. Rob Milechka leads at the end of lap number 1.
And some guys already peaking under 3 wide in the first 2 corners on that opening lap. Good news is that everyone has cycled back to double file action. McEwen gets the run off the high side in turns 3 and 4. But early in this run, as this track doesn't have as much rubber in it, some of those lines may not be better than others right now. Over the race, we'll see that discrepancy. McEwen, though, has the upper hand. I saw Michele Costantini making his way forward in the first lap. And watch this, Brandon Treno, who is yet to capture a top 30 this season, inside 3 wide. Lobigra having to back out in turn 4.
Oh, and Jacob Oster there, not taking no for an answer. He'll be working with Brandon Treno on the radio, the alliance between the Apex Racing team and Team I5G. And they've got a rocket ship of a machine as well. Michael Johnny under fire now as Treno looks down low and tries to slide job his way on forward. Intense stuff, and if this is how we're going to be battling for the next 140 so odd laps, you best believe we'll see some cautions before the end of this. One thing to keep in mind though, clean air, very important. Rob Milechka already 8 tenths clear of the rest of the field. Jason Brophy, his teammate, on a very similar setup, I'm assuming, trying to work down low and fight his way forward.
And that means, Arjuna, that everyone trapped in turbulent air behind the race leader, they're going to have a harder time passing the cars around them. This track is abrasive. That means that it is not as easy to kick in that throttle pedal when you're on corner exit. So oftentimes you'll see guys on the inside fail in their attempts to make passes for position. We've already seen it a couple of times with drivers like Jacob Oster, who sits back in 11th, and as you peek underneath the driver, that air and just getting the throttle off the corner will be really tough to get to. So make your passes early in the run as these tires wear out. It is not going to get easier as Brophy dials up the inside on Dan Amor before turn 1.
Just not working for him, and if you've never driven these IR18s on an oval, well, they've got in-car tools to work with. The front and rear have anti-roll bars. You can get a bit more rotation or make the car a little less quick to turn if you want to. You also have the weight jacker here on ovals that moves the weight around the axis of the car a little bit more, and so something these drivers have got to keep proactively involved in. The best drivers, Kenneth, they know where the car needs to be, not where the car needed to be in the last quarter.
That's true, and that's why this series is going to be so diverse in who will be in that fight for the championship, because this is the same Dallara IR18. But IndyCar races on road courses versus ovals, they have way different components on either end. When you mention changing that weight jacker, when you mention no tire compounds, it changes the game completely. So a lot of the guys who may have struggled in the first 2 rounds are seeing Iowa with heart eyes. They're looking at it like, this is my opportunity to make a dent in the championship or find some sort of positive momentum as we keep on board with Brophy. And he is still trying underneath Dan Amor, but the banking off the corner, 14 degrees, doesn't allow for that much momentum on the inside. So Brophy will try his best, hoping that Amor makes a mistake this fight for 8th place.
Well, you can see as well the single file nature of the race developing. Is it going to start leading to some checkups the deeper into the race that we go? Michele Costantini, a little bit of damage looking off his rear wing as you focus on race 1 winner Eduardo Leo. Team Redline showing up with 4 of their drivers inside of the top 10. So a team that's at the start of the summer still trying to figure this car out. Definitely figured plenty out about it, as you start to see a bit of a slip up there. Leo may be struggling a little bit. Have to wonder, has he been running a bit too close to the wall? More contact, you'll start to struggle the more dirty air as the race develops.
And most drivers will go back to that high line over the course of this run, because sometimes that'll be the better place to take care of your rubber. So when you have more cars up there, the more turbulent the air is going to get. For Leo, at this point, he's going to start playing defense. But even 15 laps in, it's exactly what I mentioned before we took the green, managing that right front tire. If you can manage getting away with less wear on that tire than others, you may be in a good situation. Now we're starting to pick things up behind Eduardo Leo in 7th place. There are 4 cars running for P8 right behind Leo in that red line machine. Amor holding on against Oster, Brophy, and now bringing Brandon Trano in 11th place.
You're seeing, though, that Brophy's so committed down low, and Oster's taken advantage, ripped the high line, made that move happen. Watch what Oster does once again. He shapes up high, puts a little bit of clean air on his nose, tries to roll a bit more speed. Doesn't quite work just yet. Allows Brandon Trano the chance to try and slide his way to the inside of Jason Brophy. Washes up the track, very close between them as we come to the end of lap 17. And if you're loving this action, well, iRacing.com/IndyCar-esports can learn more about the drivers, the schedule, the standings. We've still got a long way to go. 10 rounds in this championship, and this is only round 3. Now Costantini's lost some speed. What's happened to the Commander Esports number 66 machine? Remember, last week at Long Beach, into the wall hard. Struggles continue here today.
And it's another tango with a Team Redline driver, Eduardo Leo, who is fighting off the pressure from Dan Amor in turns 3 and 4. Ended up getting bobbling out of the way, got into Costantini, who sent him out of shape, up the 14 degrees of banking and into the outside wall. It isn't going to inflict that much damage on the Italian to take him out of this race, but it will shake him a bit, and in turn loses all of that track position, which will be eliminated early. Now he's in the wall again. He'll tag the driver down low, and Florian Labigra, Michael Jani, the Coanda teammate, getting out of the way. Costantini bobbling, and he's got wing damage.
And he's going to have to try and find a way down low to bring it to pit lane. He won't be given the chance this time by. The field will filter down low. Oh, the pain continues for a potential championship hopeful who now sees Peter Berryman, his former teammate, stacked up behind him. I wonder if Costantini's shaking off the damage. They'll go 3 wide out through turn 1 and 2. Bold from Berryman. Lichtenberg slides it up the inside as well. Oh, Costantini just hoping and praying he'll be able to slide it down to pit lane sooner rather than later.
This mid-pack is flushing Costantini down the drain. Now more going underneath. Jose Soria and his number 25 machine goes down low. Xavi Ros, the Spaniard, goes underneath as well. Another Coanda teammate, this time Jordan Caruso. It is nightmare time for Michele Costantini. Those 2 little moments got him out of it, and all of that speed being scrubbed off so quickly early on.
Ooh, Dan Amor slides up the track. He's got his teammate now behind him, Luke McEwen, starting to slide backwards. Now, have you pushed these tires a little bit too long? You can get to around the halfway mark if you're playing a bit of the fuel strategy. does mean you have to mind your tires just a little bit, and as we start to cycle our way through this race, expect drivers to be thinking about green flag pit stops and the danger of pitting off of turn 4. What will that mean? Oh, bold around the outside. They're tangling on the back straightaway. Costantini tangles, with someone there, and he's going to back his way down onto the pit access road. And for the first time this season, Kenneth, safety car out on track.
Caution flag is out. What did I say? A big pusher in this race will be cautions and how it will affect the strategy. Kevin Burrow got into Costantini. It seems they have tangled off of turn 2, and that's what get both of them out of shape at the rise up off the corner, and both of them get involved to bring out the yellow. Costantini, boy, he was on the struggle bus from that tap to the outside wall. Up until then, it seemed like that was the insult to injury for the Italian, who started this race strong, wanted to rebound after that mistake going into one of the corners at Long Beach. It was turn 9, and all of a sudden he may be out of this one from Iowa before he even knows it.
So do you pit? That will be the question that drivers are asking to their engineers. I wonder what the call will be. It's still relatively early in this race, but tires are important. And Rob Malechka, the leader, stays firmly to the left, going to the right at the very last moment. One of the Coanda Esports drivers will be very interesting to see how this split plays itself on out. Dan Amor, Luke McEwen, alongside Peter Berryman, Cooper Webster might have committed to that, but Kenneth, let's go back in time, figure out what happened to Costantini and the Coanda Esports purple and orange.
So as Costantini was bleeding time, here's Kevin Burrow on the outside. They'll make the contact at the crest of the hill. Not sure what happened with Costantini there, whether the right front just gave up at the exit of the corner or whether he just could not find any sort of rotation. There also is a bit of a crest going to that back straightaway here at Iowa, where you can spin the rear tires a bit, but it doesn't seem to be the diagnosis. That slight contact at the high speed sends them both spinning. Costantini achieving the worst damage out of the two. Burrow going to end up continuing on in 30th place, but he's already on pit road and may fall a lap down to the leader. So for Costantini, this race has turned sour very quickly. Good news is he's still got some time left, but the question is, how much damage does he really have and how much time will it take to fix?
If you're just joining us for the first time tonight, haven't talked about prize pool yet, so you haven't missed anything, but they're fighting for their share of $50,000. The champion, of course, to walk away with the lion's share of that prize pool, $20,000 to their name. And of course, 5 ovals this season should be very interesting to see how it all plays out. Top 15 in the championship walk away with something, so everyone fighting at least through the field. So top 10 have stayed out on track as Jaden Munoz dives the pit lane this time by. It's very interesting trying to figure out what the strategy is going to look like. But Kenneth, the one thing that I love, split strategies. Always makes races so interesting.
And one thing for those who are staying out, probably that theory, Arjuna, that there probably will be more yellows as we continue to stack the field together on restarts. More of a chance for somebody to cough up a mistake, cause something to happen on track, and take out some drivers. However, I'm a little confused, though, about staying out if it's not for track position's sake, because as we mentioned in the race analysis, there are no tire set limits. So it's not like those that are staying out looking to save a tire set for the end. They can take as many tires as they want over the course of the race. And then how big of a discrepancy are they going to face in comparison to everyone 11th on back? We know Robert Malechka has spent all of this race up front. This will be the first challenge in dirty air, but on fresh tires could make these guys up front look like they're standing still. So watch that on the green flag as we go single file.
Wait for the lights to drop off the pace car before we get racing once again. Did note that for Jason Brophy, who we saw battling up there in the top 10, technical issue for him. Kenneth, he's now going to be down at least 3 laps on the rest of the field as he tries to fight his way back in. Now, this was one of the few races where he thought he might have a chance on the oval, so it's going to be disappointing for him. There is Michele Costantini.
And this is the face of a man that needs to get determined for the next 117 laps. It is going to be a long race for Costantini to get back into this one. But the good news in comparison to last week's race at Long Beach is that this mistake and this situation happened early in the race. We're joined by Michele Costantini now. Michele, just walk us through what happened there, the 2 incidents that got your car damaged before the caution came out.
I mean, just red line things, really. I think the contact with Eduardo was just a bit of netcode, but Florian just came up from the bottom and just hit my left rear and just damaged my car completely. And then, you know, with Kevin on the outside, I was just understeering because my car was broken. So I'm sorry to him. But yeah, I just got damaged by Florian coming up, and yeah, that's it. So just need to make up a few positions now. Hopefully there's another few cautions and I can try to get my lap back. And yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens.
That's the bright side of it, Michele. Still a long race to go. We hope to see you get back in contention, and thank you for the time. It's Michele Costantini, Arjuna, that ends up with the incident to bring out our first yellow of the race. Determined, but still a tall task ahead of him to get back up front.
And so our field is left in control of the young 16-year-old Dan Amor. Not sure how much oval experience he's got, but he punches the throttle. We're racing once again from Iowa. And remember, 10 drivers did not come down pit lane. Let's see how valuable the Firestone tires are for those that pitted behind. Rob Malechka leading the charge in that private label team hype number 91. The rest of those in front of him going to be trying to frustrate. You are still going to have to make one pit stop to the end of the race, guaranteed. The tank just doesn't have enough fuel to get you to the very end, so that's one thing they'll be keeping in mind as McEwen slides up the track. He's really not looking comfortable.
Well, he's on the pair of Apex cars that finished inside the top 5 last week at Long Beach in California. It was a huge statement for them based off what happened in the first race where they capped off top 10s but had to fight and claw to get their way there. We look on board with Robert Malechka, and it seems like the advantage on the fresh Firestone Firehawks are not that apparent. He's still struggling to dial up the inside on Adam Crane. Nobody on the fresh tires behind Malechka have been able to make moves. So it seems as though those who stayed out are looking like geniuses right now on the strategy. Malechka not having fun in the dirty air on the inside.
So Adam Crane frustrates him, just runs that slightly higher line, arcs the corner a bit more, and Rob Malechka holds his station for the time being, as a very similar sort of a view to what we saw Jason Brophy trying to do lap after lap after lap. Got to wonder what these teams have brought in terms of setups as well. Might also be using fuel maps at this point, Kenneth. Now, the IndyCar does have several fuel maps that help you save a bit of fuel in this situation. So maybe something they're thinking about is let the drivers in front burn a bit more fuel up, come down to pit lane, and see how long they can extend the stint before they dive in for their final time today.
And that'll be interesting, too. If we don't find ourselves with another yellow in this race, Arjuna, it will pressure those guys up front to come down pit road at some point. And you can argue, yes, that yellow flag will allow those guys to save a bit of their gas over the course of that stint, but when you don't have yellows that last that long, you're not saving that much fuel worthy of altering an entire strategy. So in terms of these guys that are up front, I'd say that they may be a little worried if this race goes into a long run, but their probable best option is have a yellow flag come out after a decent enough run to where they can pit for that fuel and they can get fresher tires than everyone else in the field. As watch this still with Robert Malechka on the inside of Adam Crane. It's allowed Jogo Pinto, his red line machine, on the outside. That's for 11.
He's knocking on the door, but no radical optimism is going to let you make this move with osmosis just yet. Mind control not available in that IR18, but he's persistent. He's consistent with the line as well, trying to hit that yellow line, and lap after lap, he's finally been able to push Adam Crane away from that spot. And what can Pinto do behind? Can't afford now to sit and ride. He's got to try and follow through. Keep an eye on Jacob Oster as well. He'll be someone trying to make his way forward. Just missed out on winning the 2022 iRacing Indy 500.
And look at how easy Pinto got around Crane just by using a different lane. We mentioned that Iowa is conducive to multi-groove racing, but the outside lane, as it's picked up rubber, it seems like it has picked up a ton of the pace. Malechka took maybe more than 5 or so laps to get around Crane on the inside lane. Pinto just took one swig of the outside lane and around he went. So it is crazy to see how Pinto was able to do that over just one lap.
For more information on how to start your iRacing career, because every day is race day, on your journey potentially to being here in this INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series, log on to iRacing.com. This is the view. And I'll just tell you a story about Jacob Oster as well. A couple of years ago, he had just joined iRacing, had never really done too much sim racing. Before the 2021 iRacing Indy 500, he took the iRacing default setup, engineered it so he was fast enough to qualify into the top split, let's not talk about how the race went, Kenneth, but he signed up with Team i5G a couple of weeks later, second in the 2022 iRacing Indy 500, and here he is today in our Pro Series.
Well, I could say, Arjuna, if you're able to tweak a baseline setup and make him competitive in an open setup Indy 500, that's infinite swag points. I'm not going to lie. That is amazing for Oster. I'm sure that i5G looked at that and said, hey, we may need someone like you. Oster doing well for himself right now inside the top 15, which is wonderful. And, you know, I don't think I would have the gall, Arjuna, to try something like that in my early years of iRacing. I was too scared to even run official races normally throughout the week. So credit to Oster as he tries to manage a top 15 run right now.
I mean, to be fair, he is an engineer. He sent an experiment up to the space station, celebrated by watching his teammate Brendan Lichtenberg on Twitch. That was something he put in his official bio. Let's focus on the battle between those struggling, I think, a bit at this point on their worn Firestones. Jose Soria yet to finish a race this season without an incident of some kind. He's got two co-INDYCARs stacked up behind, Elliot Veyron and Jordan Caruso, who is looking quite feisty down low. I think mainly because you've got Rob Malechka, fresh tires a boot, looking behind to try and make his move.
It's all about dialing up the outside lane for Malechka, and that's what he's doing right now. He's turning that car a little bit higher on the banking here, and it's getting him the run off turn 4. Tag on the wall by Caruso will help the Chevrolet of Malechka get to the inside. And this fight could still be on charge. Malechka did tap the apron with the left side tires in turns 1 and 2, so it'll halt his momentum for now. We were talking about, Arjuna, over this series, drivers who may have struggled in the first 2 races that could have that turnaround come on the oval. For Jose Soria in his number 25 machine, he's yet to finish a race in this top 20. He's had bad luck at Indy and at Long Beach. So for Drago Racing, they love to see Soria running up front here on this alternative strategy. And again, it could make a difference in that point standings chart at the end of it as Malechka goes under Caruso once again in turn 1.
Going to give it a go, but not got the speed to wash up and push Caruso off that position. Have to try and fight yet another chance to try and set something up the long way around. Here's the view, by the way, from Jose Soria. Not sure if this is one of the races, but he's going to be traveling around Asia through this championship series. Sent me a message a couple of weeks ago. I grew up in Singapore. He asked me, do you know anyone with a sim rig in Singapore? This looks like a sim racing center or something. If that's a sim rig, that's pretty cool, but we'll have to try and find out. I think he's visiting Singapore and Hong Kong, Kenneth, so he's got to find it.
Wow.
If you have a sim rig, message Jose Soria as we watch Malechka put the moves on Veyron.
How about going on a world tour, right, during an IndyCar championship on iRacing? That's awesome. But Soria, yeah, definitely a great rig for him, and it's helping him perform well so far as he manages P6. We're looking at Malechka try on Elliot Veyron, another driver that has struggled over the course of this series a bit. Picked up a top 10 at Long Beach last week, but failed to make the top 30 at Indianapolis in race 1. So again, one of those guys like Soria who is just picking up that momentum in this oval race, and this strategy could change things a bit. We're noticing though that that inside line doesn't have as much prowess. It looked like early in the race that seemed to be where to go. Everybody wanted to do that in clean air, but as soon as you're in the pack, and that bottom or middle lane seems to not give you the benefit at all, although Veyron is going to try here on Soria, turn 1.
Haven't talked about Dan Amor much since the green flag dropped once again, but he is broken away. 2 seconds clear. Malechka got a very good run out of turn 1 and 2. Backs out initially. Runs the middle of the track, trying to now set his move up on the Frenchman Elliot Veyron as they battle back towards the line. Bit of a squeeze from Veyron. Can see Malechka, that's what he wanted to try and do. Slide job his way back up the track, and that's where the fresh tires come into play. Makes his way up to 7th. Diogo Pinto, for reference, still back in 12th position. Jacob Oster's already past him. Malechka's now trying to make his way past Jose Soria, trying to crack his way into the top 6.
The biggest point here on the fresh tires is use the rubber while you have it. You cannot lay back, and this is going to alternate his strategy a little more because Veyron will try. That's an attempted slide job. 3 and 4. Backs up Malechka a little bit at the exit of the corner, and now Malechka's in a Cohen sandwich. He'll dial up turn 1 again. But boy, tagging the apron, getting that right front, screaming off the corner. It will work to a T at some point for Malechka, but as the run progresses, that move will not be fruitful at all. So you gotta wonder if Malechka's just pushing a little bit on his tires to weave through the traffic, and if it may bite him a little later on in the race.
That was a move of frustration. He's not happy that Jose Soria is frustrating him that much, and he told Elio Veyron with the body language of the car, no, 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 don't do it right now. And he's doing the same to Soria, slams into the air of Soria off the corner. Veyron's going to try and slice it down low, and Malechka's going to play both of them now, give them both a little bit of dirty air on the run through turns 1 and 2. But this is really where we're going to now start to figure out when the drivers that didn't pit want to come down pit lane, as Soria and Veyron very close to making contact. Soria holds on.
Whoa, your leader's around! Dan Amor hard into the wall, and he catches a INDYCAR with him. It's Michele Costantini. I saw Amor sideways in the crest of the hill from turn 2, and then got hit out of shape, got into Costantini, and your race leader in peril at lap 63.
And so now, follow the iRacing instructions about what it wants you to do. We will grab a replay. The benefit of being here at an oval is you can set up a camera if you're a commentator and see whatever is happening. And Kenneth, I'm glad that you did, because I was so focused on the battle that we were watching, did not even realize what was happening to your race leader. And clearly, pushing a little bit too hard. Dan Amor, relatively little experience on the ovals, and he just found out how difficult speedways can truly be.
Well, Arjuna, it's exactly what I said. You light up the rear tires when you hit that crest off turn 2. It's a harsher transition than from an eye's glance. There's Amor just wiggling the car off the corner. A wonderful save, but he's still trying to carry it through down the back straightaway. The car didn't seem to be fully straight as he was weaving it back on the racetrack, and in the way was Michele Costantini. Absolutely poor luck from the Italian. There was nowhere he could go on that incident, and Amor, who had spent a good amount of this race up front on his strategy, now behind the 8 ball on our second caution of the race.
And so there was traffic at play. Sam Coiter was at danger of going a lap down, it would seem, and Amor unfortunately gets tangled up. So race off of pit lane, you see 2 drivers stay out. These are drivers hoping to get laps back rather than battle up towards the very front of the field, because it is Luke McEwen that holds on to the net race lead. Peter Berriman makes it an Apex 1 and 2. Cooper Webster, Rob Malechka, Elliot Veyron, and then Jose Soria, the rest of the top 5. This is very, very interesting. We are just on the cusp of maybe making it on a no stop to the end. You can see what it means to Dan Amor. Kenneth's catching up with the driver of the Apex Racing Academy machine.
And here I am with Dan Amor getting involved in this incident. Dan, tough luck there. Just talk us through what happened there off of turn 2, and what was that situation like behind the wheel?
To be honest, so obviously I was in the lead. I caught up to, I think it was Michele and someone in a red line car, I don't really remember. I got past the INDYCAR, came through turn 1, and I had a really good run off of turn 1, tried to come over to the left, the rear just completely snapped on me, managed to save that snap, tried to bring it back over to the right hand side, and then the rear just completely went on me, and then that was the end of that.
Well, we know that this race starting behind the 8 ball now at lap 66. What do you keep in mind mentally here as you try to recover and make something of this race points-wise?
I'm just going to try and finish at this point. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people with, I guess, similar situations to me. It's really tough. There'll be a lot of incidents on pit entry, I expect. And overall, I'm just going to try and stay alive and pick up the pieces what I can now.
Well, Dan, we know it was a tough break, but we hope you're able to recover later in this race. Best of luck out there.
Thank you.
Arjuna, that is Dan Amor, the race leader, who spins off turn 2 and collects Michele Costantini to bring out our second caution here at Iowa.
You could see what it meant to him as well, right? He was in a great position, was building his advantage. Such a bumpy track, one small mistake, and you know he'll be better for it as much as it hurts right now. So reset the field. Jason Brophy is going to get one of his laps back, so he's now just 1 lap down from the rest of the leading group. But it's now set us up very, very interestingly to the very end. A bit of a sprint in many ways. Although if we get a couple more cautions, Kenneth, which I think Dan was kind of alluding to it, he kind of expects that we will. I wonder if someone's going to be brave, someone's going to be bold, and say, you know what, I'm going to save fuel, and I'm not coming back to pit lane before the end of this race.
I'd imagine that someone near the back half of the top 15 or top 20 Arjuna will be willing to try that strategy. It's something that does work, and I mean, you looked at those guys who stayed out off of the first caution of the race, and you saw how little of a difference on tires they had from those behind them. You know, the guys on fresh tires took a while to start rolling through the field. So if you're a guy that says, what if I save fuel? What if I stay out if another caution comes out? And they'll have a tough time just getting around me if I have a decent pack of cars behind. And by that time, the race could be crunched down to the littlest of margins to where all you got to do is just stay up front. You can capture your first win of the season. But watch up front right now. Luke McEwen, Peter Berryman, Cooper Webster, all three of these drivers finished well at Long Beach. Webster was the winner. He'll look to become the first driver to go 2 in a row. That's if he stays up front, though. This race has been rather unpredictable.
You do want to go to the end. Your fuel might be able to get you there. Can you make the Firestones hold on to the checkered flag? Well, it's a long way to go. It's our second caution of the day, and surely cautions breed cautions. If you believe in a commentator's curse, you can shout at me on Twitter, but for the time being, let's punch the throttle. Bit of a slow start there from Rob Malechka. Was he in the wrong fuel map? He's allowed Elliot Veyron the chance to try and challenge around the outside, but finally gets through the gears in the private label team hype number 91 and will hold on to 4th position. Might, though, have checked the field up behind. Jacob Oster's going to rip the high line past Ricardo Rico. Jose Soria is going to try and resume his battle with Elliot Veyron.
And Oster, one of the biggest movers of the night, started 18th, and he's rolling just in 7th place inside the top 10. Almost contact between the co-INDYCAR of Veyron and Soria up high. A bit of a tangle gets Soria near the outside wall, but does that allow Oster to get underneath? He'll stay back. Here comes Ricardo Rico, another Drago Racing entry. They're starting to find their way into the top 10.
And keep an eye on Brandon Traino as well. What will he do? The king of the bricks from 9th position in the Apex Racing team car. It's got the red wing mirrors and front wing as well if you're trying to pick those 3 Apex blue and black entries apart from one another. We are, though, right in the heart of the action here. This is where the drivers are really dicing at their most. Phil Kraus looks down low on Ricardo Rico, all as you see them fanning out, looking for some clean air. Your race leader, Luke McEwen, 7/10ths clear. Very comfortable up front right now, setting the tempo and pacing the field.
You know, when as Arjuna, we were watching practice go down earlier tonight, we were looking at Philip Kraus as potentially a dominant driver from the start of the race, but he didn't get that best of a lap in qualifying, started 17th, and ever since he's been trying to work his way slowly through the field. Kraus was one of the faster drivers in practice by a pretty healthy margin, at least a couple hundredths of a second, but Kraus is just now getting his way into the top 10, which is good now that we're about halfway here from Newton, Iowa. Going down the inside on Ricardo Rico, unsuccessful, but what I'm tallying here early in this run, everyone wants to pass. It will get only harder as the tires wear down. Use that inside while you have it.
And so there goes Kraus, commits down low, but not going to be able to send it and clear the car he's battling with just yet. Not going to open up any battles behind him just yet either. Thomas Shimon seems relatively content to ride for the time being. Got to call out as well, after the great effort in qualifying, this is the danger of cautions on ovals. Pinto and Ariel, they're down in 12th and 13th. And Kenneth, this was a stat that you called out for me before we went live. They are the only 2 drivers to have finished inside the top 5 in both of the races so far this season.
And for Ariel, he has an average finish of 4.5. For Jogo Pinto, he has an average finish of 4th this season, which is the best of anyone in this series thus far. Give or take, it's a small sample size. It's only 2 races, but if you can manage top 5s in both races that were pretty difficult in their own right, you can find yourself in a good spot point standings wise as we move forward in the championship. But here they are in a tough position. You enter mid-pack, midway of the top 15. You're probably looking at a bit more of a struggle to weave your way and pick off driver by driver that's slowly inside of the top 10. So for Jogo Pinto, who started in second on the front row of this race, ultimately we'll just have to work back to it after a successful start. Still got a ton of ways to go.
And this is, I think, a bit of a reminder to the fact that the Apex Racing team, with Brandon Traino and so many other drivers as well, have such a rich heritage of competing in this iRacing Indy 500, and they are definitely ones to keep an eye on the ovals as well, although maybe not as much as a surprise as the effort in qualifying from red line to put 2 cars inside of the front 2 rows. Eduardo Leo sits in 14th, directly behind Gustavo Ariel. You've got 4 of the red line cars in a line right now. And then Brendan Lichtenberg sat behind, who you might want to keep an eye on him. He's a judo black belt, and the ovals are his specialty. So what sort of throws and chops is he going to be wheeling out as he tries to fight his way to the front?
What's great is that he's got one of the better Twitch viewerships on for iRacing at the IndyCar side of things. Brendan Hyperstar, he's always streaming on Twitch there. But for Lichtenberg, who had a pair of 26th place finishes in our first 2 rounds of the season, he's one of those guys that this could be the breakthrough, right? He's one of those guys that's more of a specialty on ovals. He's not the specialty on the road courses like the guys who are in front of him, Florian Labigra or Eduardo Leos of the world. Not to say that Lichtenberg isn't as skillful, but ovals is really where Lichtenberg shines. And as you get to look on board, you get a look at his sim rig there on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It's in a solid spot as here comes a battle for 2nd place. Peter Berryman getting the heat from Robert Malechka.
And so patience has finally worn thin. Malechka knocks at the door down low once again. Watch McEwen break away. It's actually helping Berryman that he's now got less dirty air from his teammate, because he can maybe run the lines he wants to with a bit more confidence. Malechka's going to build up the speed once more. Not going to arc and try and commit to turn 1 this time by. Arcs in a bit later, builds up his speed. This is a great battle, and if you ever wondered, are ovals fun to race on, and you're a road course racer, this is your answer. Yes, and short ovals, well, they're tricky. They are very, very tough mentally as well. You're doing 18-second lap times around here, but Kenneth, I mean, this is a challenge that everyone is enjoying right now.
You know, road course racing has its own sort of fun to it, but oval racing has a thrill that isn't replicated in a lot of other places in the real world or on iRacing. Oval racing, especially with these fast Dallara IR18s, is just a bit of a challenge, but once you get to handle it, it becomes a ton of fun. It becomes a blast to drive these cars. I was about to ask another question to you, whether we were going to see Malechka try the slide job in 1 and 2 again on Berryman. It seemed like he didn't have the position, but you got to point that out. If we get later in the run and Malechka gets a little desperate trying to get around Berryman for 2nd, chasing down Luke McEwen, we could see that entryway into turn 1 happen again. Malechka has the run off turn 4. Probably not the entryway into turn 1 he wants, but we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, and I think the answer is he's not had a chance to try a slide job just yet, and it is clear that right now the Apex Racing cars are fast enough. Maybe there's a bit of a fuel save going on as well. You know, we've kept that at the back of our minds too, but Peter Berryman's defense holding up very, very strongly right now, and Brandon Traino going on the offense and trying to work his way forward through the field. He's trying to pass Elliot Veyron slightly further back, so definitely ones to keep an eye on, knowing that the next time we go oval racing is in 2 weeks' time from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which that's going to be fun. Anytime you go to the racing capital of the world, it's a great day, but we've got trips to the Worldwide Technology Raceway, Milwaukee Mile, and Nashville Super Speedway to come. Now, of those tracks, 2 of those can be arguably, or should be said, are short tracks. None of them are particularly big though, right? So, I mean, the challenges are still going to flow, Kenneth, and this is a bit of a form book for us as we head over to Barber next week.
Yeah, Barber, a staple in the IndyCar schedule currently. That'll be really awesome to see what Barber cooks up as our 3rd road course race of the season. And, you know, Barber has its twists and turns as a specific part of the track that always gets me when you're going down the hill through a bunch of chicanes. It is awesome to run at Barber, so we'll see who can master that track in just next week on October 10th. But a good point you made, Arjuna, about the ovals, that a bunch of them, other than Indianapolis, they're shorter tracks, and like I said at the top of the show, they're abrasive. So you can imagine that the drivers in this race, even though, you know, they set up for Iowa differently than they would everywhere else, they're taking small notes about the facts of this track and what it's all about as an abrasive venue that they can take into a Gateway or a Milwaukee Mile or a Nashville Super Speedway, and that could give you that upper hand if you're fighting for that championship.
Once again, looking off the rear cam of Jose Soria. Still not sure if, we don't think he's racing from home. We're pretty sure he's racing maybe from Singapore, maybe from Hong Kong. International man of mystery is Jose Soria in this season's INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series. But again, you're just seeing how frustrating it can be when you don't necessarily have the speed to pass, but you feel like you might have a slightly faster car. Once again, looks down low. Does Oster in the green and gold. Doesn't quite work out. And so as they run back up to turn 1, see the advantage stretch out, and this cam from up above really does show you the lines through the corner, right, Kenneth? How they arc it through the corner, trying to maintain or build up a little bit of speed.
And it just shows you as well how difficult it is to make a pass on the inside over the longer run. You can tell that Soria is hanging in that middle lane. If you go a little too high in 1 and 2, you'll encounter a really nasty bump that can get your car out of shape and oscillate it a ton. So stay above by at least a groove and a half. Keep yourself there. Then in 3 and 4, you can use a little bit more of that very outside lane. You can touch on that 3rd or 4th groove and make it work. But the good news for Soria is that he can arc high and cut down a little low, just so when Oster rises off the corner and his right front is screaming a little bit for that grip, Oster cannot keep the throttle in, or he's going to slam Soria and cause a pileup. So again, that inside lane over the run has been tough. That's why Oster is dialing up the high side through the bumps.
And keep an eye on Phil Kraus sliding his way forward as well. He's really started to make some moves past Brandon Traino. Next to try and make a move on these two as they wheel to wheel off of turn 4. Bit close for comfort in terms of the margin to the wall that Oster had, and I think Soria got the message, has let Oster take the spot. Not going to be allowed though to be calm into turn 3. Kraus instantly takes advantage, and 2 positions lost in 1 lap for Jose Soria as Oster to 5th, Kraus to 6th. Fight not done just yet.
Just a tough spot there for Soria as he backed up with Oster getting to his outside and then had the wrong angle in turns 1 and 2. He had to wash up the track and lose him a ton of speed, and Kraus, who already had the nose inside by the time they got off the back straightaway, could just dive it in turn 3 and make the pass. Soria still has the top 10 in hand, but we know that he's starting to get jumped quite a bit because Brandon Traino, who I would say, Arjuna, this is his first technical round 1 after not starting at Indianapolis and then getting caught in a crash literally on lap number 1 at Long Beach last Thursday night. So this is Traino's first proper try with this series. Here he is on the inside.
And I think any chance of the championship may be gone from his mind. He'll just be focused on good results and maybe waltzing his way into victory lane before the season's closed. Gets his move made on Jose Soria with relative ease in front. His teammate under fire, and I think Phil Kraus has just made a move around the outside. That's a bold move, and private label team hype. We're getting to that point of the race where the tires, these Firestone tires, are going to start falling off. Who has got the best long run setup if we stay green? Because that's by no means a guarantee, with now 41 laps to go with Apex Racing Team, Luke McEwen, Peter Berryman still 1 and 2. Rob Malechka might just have found his way forward to 2nd place.
He just got his way around Berryman via the outside lane. Bottom end of your screen, the replay from Oster's pass on Soria. It's going to be 3 and 4, where Oster says, you know what, I'm going to go up high, I'm going to go right up against that wall, and there is nothing you can do to stop me. Look how much speed he carries off the corner, taps the outside wall, but it was all worth it to make that pass for P6.
Ooh, and for a moment, live shot showed a damaged race car. Don't worry too much about that. I think that's just a little bit of traffic for these race leaders to work their way through. But you can already see Peter Berryman down to 3rd, and now Cooper Webster, the winner from a week ago, finds himself in a position to hunt for a podium spot. The mirror is being filled by the experience from Phil Kraus. 1.4 seconds the margin between 1st and 2nd spot. We're going to have to keep an eye now, Kenneth, on Luke McEwen, Rob Malechka. The margin between the 2 of them, because if this race goes green to the end, we've got 11 minutes of racing to go.
And McEwen has the upper hand that he's in clean air, but Malechka, who is just starting to get his bearings together, is one of the stronger cars on the long run, so we could see that gap crunch down to under a second, and it may pose a significant threat as we watch the battle for 3rd build on up. Cooper Webster has done a great job, Arjuna, wouldn't you say, being able to finagle the strategy in the right way, work his way up to 4th, and could keep that points lead should he finishes where he does in the next 36 laps or so. There's Malechka, and while McEwen is in clean air, I guess you could argue that Malechka is too. The gap is so big that both of these guys are in the clean air. Malechka last time by set a lap a tad slower than McEwen, but they are mirror image on lap time, so it could get close as the tires continue to wear down.
We're talking 18 thousandths of a second. Last lap, the difference between them. What's it going to be this time? With now 34 to go. Malechka loses a little bit more time, but we're talking 5 thousandths of a second last time by at the line. These are margins about how much you're sliding up the track on the bumps. And Luke McEwen, you got to give him his credit right now. He is driving the perfect final stint of this race. Has he got the tire life underneath him? Meanwhile, Phil Kraus trying to now get to the podium spot, make it 2 private label Team Hype drivers inside of these podium positions. He's made his way past Cooper Webster, closing on the back of Peter Berryman, the number 50.
You know, Arjuna, we were talking about track position and how it does matter over the run, which it certainly does. Look at the contact. Gustavo Ariel getting a hip check from Ricardo Rico off the exit of turn 4. This hard-fought battle not over yet for P12, but watching the cautions as they came out, in which ways they did, how it altered the strategy. We've got 7 drivers in this top 10 right now that started 10th or worse. So a bulk of them had to start from the mid-pack, and they're just slowly working their way up through the field, and those cautions definitely helped. Ariel is trying the slide job on Rico here, Arjuna, but again, off of the inside on the exit of the corner, it's so tough to keep that momentum. That's why the Drago Racing entry of Rico can keep his place up high.
And while they're trading blows back and forth in this battle, trading lap times back and forth at the front as well. Malechka, there was one lap where he was about 1.5 tenths quicker, but Luke McEwen's made that time back up. And these are those adjustments. Again, the anti-roll bars, the weight jacker. The best drivers are proactive. They know what the car needs before they get to the corner, not after they get to the corner. Ariel runs up a lane, tries to give Ricardo Rico just enough room as they run down the back straightaway. We are flying through the laps right now. Only 2 cautions so far. It's been a very clean race, and 32 drivers started. We are going to see, if it finishes like this, 29 seeing the checkered flag. Just Dan Amor, Michele Costantini, and Kevin Burrell sitting and watching from the garage.
Yeah, tough for them, especially for Costantini, who started this championship rather well for himself, but unfortunately is now working from bad luck and going to have to rebound at the next road course race of the season at Barber Motorsports Park. But hey, you guys, the production team, are giving us over-unders on how many cautions we would have. I had a bit of optimism that we could run this race mostly green. Here we are, 26 laps to go. We're running this one green right now with a lot of great racing across the racetrack. Bottom end of your screen is Rico, who lost the fight to Ariel, and it seems as though, Arjuna, if you lose one spot, everyone else behind will start to catch by. That is a lap car Brophy, though, but it does lead Eduardo Leo with a good line to catch up to Rico and Florian Labigra. So red line teammates could make that a proper fight if we get down to the wire.
I still don't know how Gustavo didn't crash there, by the way.
I don't know either.
He tried a slide job, and yeah, he made it work. That's all I have to say. Now, Jason Brophy did come down to pit lane around 5 laps ago, so he's got good tires on that car. And, you know, he's 3 laps down, but not going to want to just give up position. He want to try and keep himself out of trouble, but also maybe try and make up some positions and track position in case there are a few more drivers that need to pit at the end of this race. And we'll also end up going laps down, let's not forget. Going down to pit lane here, by virtue of the high speeds on the speedway, guaranteed to put yourself off the leading lap. Your race lead, though, by the way, is starting to close as Luke McEwen, last time by, 0.3 of a second gained by Rob Malechka. Phil Kraus has passed Peter Berryman as well. Private label Team Hype getting hyped in their fight for the lead.
They're starting to turn things up, or in other words, they're starting to cook in these final 22 laps. McEwen just has to watch that rearview mirror. He probably could have been saving, running consistently because he's had that advantage for a little while now, but Malechka is just starting to put on heaters as McEwen slows down. You could argue that the Apex car found that tire clip, right, and is just trying to hang on in these final laps. Maybe did not expect this race to go green all the way to the end. And look at that camera shot. Malechka is that small red car in the background. You'll see him off of turn 2 in that back straightaway. There is Malechka starting to hunt down the race leader in the crunch time.
And cue the music. There is the Predator chasing its prey. We've got traffic in contention as well. So Luke McEwen's looking up the road, and he's seeing the likes of Jeff Drake, Jaden Munoz, and Michael Johnny. Plenty of drivers in these closing stages. And Kenneth, we're within 20 laps to go. At this point, a caution changes everything, makes it a true sprint to the end. But if you're one of these race leaders, the thing that you know is that you can't afford to wait because the caution could be anywhere. Rico's in the wall, lost a bit of the front wing.
And that was in a fight with Redline Racing's Eduardo Leo. Both of them may have touched out turn 2, 4 wide in turn 1. Can you believe it? They get through cleanly. Rico is just putting around on what he can on that damaged right wing. He'll probably take his car down pit road. Here he is now away from traffic, but that was close.
Wow, they went 4 wide for the championship finale on Tuesday night in the INDYCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. We can go 4 wide as well, it turns out, Kenneth. Wow, what a battle that was.
Oh my God, you won't see 4 wide often at places like Iowa. You don't think it has enough lanes to make it happen, but it did as the traffic was trying to flush down Ricardo Rico. We may get a look at the replay soon, but Rico was just arcing it down low. It looked like Leo had washed up high off turn 2, and that just got Rico out of shape, touched the outside wall, and with these IR18s, that's more than enough to give you that damage. So Rico in the Drago Racing entry, Arjuna, you gotta feel bad for him a little bit. He was running really well. That slight mistake is gonna cost him a top 10 spot.
That was remarkable, and that, if we were picking a moment of this race, Buttkicker moment of the race right there, 4 wide, and we survived. Yes, please feed me more of that. Now, Cooper Webster hunted down by Jacob Oster, and you've got some traffic to play with as well as they work their way back across the line. But we're into the final stages of this race, and so while this fight brews inside of the top 5, your race lead is also down to 0.6 of a second. Phil Kraus in 3rd is within 1 second of your leader as well. We've got a battle to the end of this race. Who's going to be at the checkered flag first? I don't know. If it will be McEwen. Does he have the fuel? Does he have the tires?
And as long as we stay green, McEwen is going to have a fight on his hands, even if Malechka is not there right now. Jeff Drake is up the road. He will go a lap down. But from here on out, Arjuna, it's a full pack up the road. You are not going to encounter just one slow car that moves out of the way for you. You have to lap down cars that are trying their best to fight for points. So what that means is that those who will fall a lap down, they won't give it to the race leader easy. Watch Private Team Label Hype. They're going to go side by side. Kraus on the inside, P2.
And so Malechka's pushed his tires too much. That's a coordinated switch between the teammates as we dip below 10 laps to go. Now, does Kraus have enough time to close and then enough time left to try and effect his pass? McEwen's on the inside of Jeff Drake. He's also got to try and make his way past Jaden Munoz, Michael Johnny potentially in these next couple of laps. Don't go anywhere, don't blink. There is a car length between the leaders, wrapping back toward the line. 8 laps to go. McEwen goes up high, tries to block the momentum of Kraus. They're still tangled up behind traffic. Kraus will rip up high.
McEwen has been trying to get under Jeff Drake this entire run, and he still cannot make it happen. Drake is in the wall. This will help Kraus get the run off turn 4. He'll get shut down by McEwen, and for right now, the Apex Racing number 96 stays up front, but this is far from over. 6 laps to go next time.
And this is the problem. You've got Kraus trying to now take advantage of the traffic. Will they go either side of Munoz? No. He tries to stay up high in his Williams Esports entry. This gives McEwen the impetus to hold on. They've got a couple more car lengths up the road before they'll catch up to Michael Johnny. Kraus goes up high once more. He was leaning on that weight jacker, asking for it to give him a bit more assistance. 5 to go this time by, and look at the confidence he's got. McEwen's out of fuel, new race leader. Phil Kraus started down in 17th. He's now on top.
McEwen did not have enough. He spent a bulk of this last stint in clean air without anyone to draft off of, and McEwen will get robbed of a top 3 spot as Malechka settles in 2nd, Treno in 3rd. Kraus left with 5 laps to go and just has to cruise unless a caution comes out.
And a caution now would end the race. There's no question about that. Kenneth, what a way to open up the first of 5 ovals. Both of the Apex Racing drivers, Peter Behrman and Luke McEwen, short on fuel. Brandon Traynor in 3rd must be good in my assumption, knowing his experience in this car. But the form book's been laid out. Keep an eye out for Kraus, Malechka, and Traynor when we head to Indianapolis in 2 weeks' time.
It will be fun when we get there. Caution flag is out, though. A car is spinning in front of the race leader. David Toth gets in trouble on the front straightaway. And now Kraus has to do the heavy lifting to get this race win from Iowa Speedway. Oh, my.
So we'll finish behind the pace car. My word, you can see David Toth's stricken drugger racing car getting ready to be limped back around to the line. But just shy of that final lap of the race, we see the caution fly for the third time tonight. And 125 miles of racing going to end behind the pace car. I guess it was fitting, Kenneth. We thought we might see a few more cautions, but only 2 until that stage. For Phil Kraus, for Rob Malechka, it will be relief, though. They don't have to get to the very end. They've just got to hold on now behind the safety car.
I said before the show started, Arjuna, that my mindset was just like Dua Lipa's most recent album title. Radical optimism, and guess what? 3 yellows. Here's what happened with David Toth, exit of turn 4. Looks like there'll be some contact there, and just gets Toth out of shape. He ends up facing the outside wall and gets some right front damage there. The wheel comes off on the tether. Both the nose and the rear wing are damaged, so Toth will not get a solid point stay out of this one. I guess the good news is that he crashes almost at the last lap, so he'll finish P20 as long as he stays on the racetrack. He's that 4th car in line on screen. But Philip Kraus will just coast this one to the first victory of the year.
And coming into this race, Phil Kraus, 29th at the Indy GP, 13th at the streets of Long Beach, and then qualified down in 17th. I think you can call this a comeback. He might not have expected to be waltzing his way into victory lane, but Phil Kraus will build his house in victory lane here at Iowa. Round 3 of the INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series goes the way of private label Team Hype 1 and 2 at the front of the field.
And you know what, Arjuna, for this team in specific, who started off the season in a tough spot, Malechka up until tonight had not been able to crack into the top 20 at race end. For Philip Kraus, in the same boat as well, had a top 15 run at Long Beach, but started off the season 29th at Indianapolis. This team has gone through some struggles to start the season, but what a way to do it here at Iowa. And the teammates 3 wide to celebrate this win.
And don't forget Jeff Drake in that Powerslide Motorsports machine as well. It's private label Team Hype with Powerslide Motorsports to give it its full and proper title. But that's a bit too long for us commentators to say every day, so we've shortened it down for this series. They will celebrate this one, and now confidence going to the racing capital of the world in 2 weeks' time for the second of our oval races. And that one's another race where fuel window and the fuel mileage will come into play. It's a 66-lap race. A fuel tank at Indy can take you anywhere from 30 to 33. You do the math. Strategy will be important as Phil Kraus parks it in victory lane, and he's still got enough fuel to burn it down in style.
A great strategy there, too. What a stunner till the end. Luke McEwen doing all that he could to play defense with the little fuel that he had remaining. And it's tough that he had to pit in those waning laps because he still could have walked away with a great finish despite losing the race lead. But Philip Kraus, Robert Malechka, Brandon Trano, your top 3, they take care of business in the first oval race of the season. And guess what, Arjuna? That'll make a dent in the championship as we ring in the oval races that are to come.
I'll be honest, I completely forgot there was a championship going on. I was having so much fun with that race. But yes, 2 ovals at the end, let's not forget. That is one thing to keep in mind. Form book going into it will be important. We'll chat to Kraus in a couple of moments' time. Let's go grab a look, though, at our Buttkicker race results. Plenty of drama through all of it. Let's catch up with Kraus first, though. He's standing by with Kenneth Bueno.
It is victory lane for the first time this season. Philip Kraus, welcome to the W here at Iowa Speedway. I have to ask you about those final laps. You were on the chase from your teammate Robert Malechka, then catching up to Philip Kraus. What did you keep in mind as the race was winding down and as you were slowly peeking into that race lead?
Yeah, definitely. We've had a lot of experience running this setup at Iowa, and we have private label Team Hype. We know it's pretty good on the long run, so a lot of the early run, like the first 20, 30 laps of that run, was just biding time, saving fuel, making sure we could make it to the end. And Rob, he was on a bit of a different strategy. He was trying to push the pace to keep Luke and Peter and all them honest, and it ended up working out really well for us because it ended up being that they couldn't make it on fuel, and Rob was probably going to sputter on the line, but I was able to have the tire life on Rob and able to get by him, and then when Luke called his pit, it's like, oh my God, just a huge deep breath.
And you've made some progression through this season, 29th at Indianapolis, but then you picked up a top 15 last week at Long Beach, the win tonight at Iowa. How much momentum does this give you and the rest of the team as you guys push forward in the championship?
I think we know that the ovals are a strong suit, but I honestly completely airmailed qualifying, and I thought it was going to be a pretty big uphill battle, throughout the race. And it ended up being one because I lost my wing pretty early on, got lucky with a caution, able to strap that back on, and I think I drove from like 25th or something after that, and just honestly, everything worked out perfectly.
First win of the season. It comes on the first oval race of the campaign. Philip, congratulations on the W here in Newton, Iowa, and can't wait to see you and the rest of the crew take on Barber next Thursday.
Yeah, cheers, Kenneth.
So Philip Kraus gets his first win of the season. That makes it 3 for 3 on different winners in this 2024 campaign. And Robert Malechka joins us now after finishing in second. A really strong car, Robert, over the course of this race. What was needed, though, in those final several laps as you and your teammate Kraus were catching up to Luke McEwen?
Honestly, all I needed was some fuel. The plan kind of going to that restart, or last restart, was for me to just kind of make the number, right on the number, basically, and push the Apex guys so they had to stop. And yeah, honestly, that worked out great. I was a bit worried there that maybe they're going to find me a bit harder, but as soon as I got by Peter and I saw Luke running like maybe a 10th faster than me, kind of knew we had it in the bag. Phil was able to save his tires and the fuel to get by me, or else I think it would have been side by side across the line between us. So, for private label team hype and power slide, 1-2. Thanks to Jason Brophy for always having a rocket ship on these ovals, and yeah, great race for us.
And for this team, a bit of a rocky start to start the 2024 calendar, but you guys have picked it up with this finish here at Iowa. How do you parlay the momentum from this race and move it towards some of the tracks that we know this team is strong at?
Yeah, honestly, on the road courses, we're still a bit behind, still searching. And driver-wise, I think Phil's the only one that can really compete on the road courses. But every oval we should be, I think the goal for us is to dominate every oval, which looks like we should. So, looking forward to that. If we can keep getting...
Looks like we just lost Malechka. There he is.
Sorry.
Welcome back. All good.
Yeah, I was just going to say, keep dominating on ovals and hopefully get some lucky, maybe top 15s on road courses, and we set for the rest of the season.
All right, Robert, we certainly appreciate the time. Congratulations on your first podium of the 2024 season. Best of luck at Barber next week. So that is Robert Malechka ending up in second place. We're joined now by Brandon Treno, who, just like Malechka, also gets his first podium of the season. Brandon, welcome. Congratulations on the podium. What was this one like from your perspective?
This one was intense. Kind of botched qualifying a little bit. Started back there in P16 and worked my way to the front. And just had to really bide my time and let the long run ability of our setup show up. And thankfully we had that with that long fuel save there at the end.
And many might count you as a driver who's just going to be on the catch-up for the season after missing the first race. You finished outside the top 30 at Long Beach last week. What does this finish mean for you and your mental side of things as a driver as you move forward in the championship in the season?
Yeah, this is just like a good rebound. Long Beach didn't go our way. It was just unfortunate luck with how everything stacked up there in the fountain, but really confident in our pace at the ovals to hopefully rebound and just have some fun, because this is really all this is about for me. So enjoying this moment here and going to hopefully continue it on through the coming races.
Well, hopefully it's only up from here. On behalf of all of us at the broadcast team, Brandon, congratulations on the podium. We'll see you at Barber next week.
Thanks.
Philip Kraus, Robert Malechka, Brandon Treno, Arjuna, your top three here from Iowa Speedway.
Brandon Trainer just turned 29. Not a bad birthday present for him. We'll take a quick gander down through the race results. And again, margins not really meaning anything as we finish behind the pace car, but keep an eye on the team and drivers that find themselves at the front. First time this season for Phil Kraus, Rob Malechka, or Brandon Trainer. We see them inside of the top 10. And what a way to do so here at the first oval round of the season. For Cooper Webster, he will be thrilled. A win a week ago and backs it up with a 4th place. We'll see what he can do at Barber. It was very quick there in the qualifying series. Jacob Oster, Diogo Pinto, Elliot Veyron, Gustavo Ariel, Thomas Shimon, and Florian Lebigra, the rest of the top 10. Plenty of those drivers taking advantage after poor qualifying efforts. Eduardo Leo down in 11th in his team redline number 17, with Michael Romanidis right behind him, and Brendan Lichtenberg, the Iowa native, finishing this race in 13th position. Javi Ross is 14th, with Jordan Caruso, the final driver, scored on the lead lap. Sam Coiter dropped to 1 lap down, it would seem, although still in front of Adam Crane and Sota Muto, Josh Chin, and David Toth, the rest of the top 20. We then start to get into those that really struggled in terms of balance of car, it would seem. Michael Johnny, Jeff Drake, Jaden Munoz, and Jose Soria. Peter Berryman, Luke McEwen were gambling on a caution that never came. They dropped down to 25th and 26th as a result of that, while Jason Brophy, technical issue for him. He finishes 27th in front of UC Katia with Ricardo Rico, Dan Amor, and then Michele Costantini and Kevin Burrell are used car lot. What does that mean in terms of points? Well, Cooper Webster being up there in 4th position is going to stand him in very good stead. He extends the margin to Diogo Pinto to 11 points, and Phil Kraus, after grabbing 50 points for the win, Kenneth has leapfrogged himself up to 6th.
Look at the big jump from those two cars, Kraus and Malechka. Malechka came into this race 27th in point standings, and for Kraus it was a bit better, but not by much, 21st. So like we said, ovals are going to play a big portion in this championship, and those who can succeed on those could make a big effort for that championship at the race end, at season's end. It's not going to be just about those road courses. Kraus and Malechka with a great result, and Apex Racing still keeping strong with Berryman McEwen despite the finish and despite having to pit at the end of the race.
Top 15 grab, championship prizes, let's not forget, but I can't wait for our trip to the Alabama roller coaster. I've driven past the Barber Motorsports Park before, and I've always just been in shock at the elevation. You can see it even from the external perspective, diving down in through the first couple of corners, or in through turn 7 at Museum Corner, and it is, Kenneth, a site where you can fit 4 cars at Iowa. You might be able to do that at Barber as well. I think we'll find out next week how that goes.
Well, I guess I'm ready for that challenge, right? To see what happens there. But you're right, elevation, a key to this road course. It is going to be different. The first time the drivers encounter elevation change on a road course for this season up until now. Long Beach and Indy didn't show that as much, but Barber will be fun. October 10th next week, we start to head into spooky season a bit, and there's a Charlotte's Web there with the big spider sculpture, so maybe that'll get us in tune for the spooky season. But Barber should be awesome. Another road course race should add on to what's been a stunning championship thus far.
And we're only just getting started. That's the most fun thing about it, right? We have got a long way to go before we crown our champion at the Nashville Super Speedway. What a way to kick off the first of our 5 oval rounds of the championship, though. It's private label Team Hype making a bit of a statement after Redline dominated on the road courses. Pole position and victory. Rob Malechka and Phil Kraus proving exactly how hype they can be. We'll see you next week for our team behind the scenes. Thanks for joining us. Arjuna Kangi Party, Kenneth Bueno signing off from Iowa, rolling on to the Alabama roller coaster.